Hello class 12 students, welcome to my session. Today I will take up the page number 85 to 95. Now today's session will conclude this chapter, events, tries and O-level. Those who have not seen the previous sessions, I will give the link in the description box. Please see from the first part. There are part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 I have finished. It's a long story and today I will do part 5. Now students, if you like my explanation, please like, share and subscribe the channel. I would come up with many more such videos. So this part is on page number 84, which I had concluded in the part 4 of the explanation of this chapter, events, tries and O-level. New grave, never heard of it. There was a war grave somewhere near Reading, but no, it was probably a code word, or then it hit him. So these words are spoken by the governor. Now in the previous part I had explained that Evans has escaped and the governor is trying to find out the words which he was thinking to be code words in the correction slip which was left behind by Evans. And then it hit him. Who is this him? Governor. That is, it occurred to him that new grave can be new bury. Now grave and bury. Bury is what? It is the burial is done. The bury, that is to engrave a body in the grave is the word bury. So he could conclude that new grave must be Newbury, which it was a place in that city. God, yes. So which city they are in? They are in Oxford. God, yes, Newbury was a pretty big sort of place, but he rapped, that is, he rapped means he gave the orders, out his orders to the driver. That is, very loudly he gave the orders to the driver. Sent Aldate's police station and step on it. That is, what did he give the instruction to the driver? To take him to St. Aldate's police station, and step on it means to drive fast. Take Jackson and Stephens here, and when you get there, ask for Bell, Chief Inspector Bell. Got it? That. So he's giving this instruction to the driver that he should take Stephens and Jackson also. I hope you all remember that Jackson was the senior prison officer in the Oxford prison and Stephens was the junior prison officer. So where he asked them, they should ask for Bell, who is the Chief Inspector Bell. Now we start from page 85 here. He leaped the stairs to his office 3 at a time, got Bell on the phone immediately and put the facts before him. So the governor leaped the stairs, leaped means what? Jumped the stairs. And he reached the office of Bell. We'll get him, sir, said Bell. So who is Bell? The Chief Inspector. So he tells to the governor of the Oxford prison that they will get, that is, they will find Evans. We'll get him with a bit of luck. The governor sat back and lit a cigarette. Ye gods, that is, the governor sat back and he lit a cigarette and he said, ye gods, that is, oh my God. What a beautifully laid plan it had all been. So he very nicely, he understands that Evans had beautifully planned out his escape. What a clever fellow Evans was. So the governor was now understanding that Evans was a very clever fellow, careless, leaving that question paper behind. So what mistake did Evans do? Only the mistake. He was a very clever fellow. And what mistake he had only done, that he had left the question paper behind. And in the question paper, I hope you remember students, that there came a correction slip and in that correction slip, all the details of where to escape, how to escape was given to Evans. So the governor is very happy that Evans was careless leaving the question paper behind. But then they all made their mistakes somewhere along the line. But then the governor also very well understood that all the prison officers, the junior, senior, governor, they all made mistakes somewhere along the examination when Evans was giving the examination. Well, almost all of them, and that's why very shortly Mr. Clever Evans would be back inside doing his once more. That is what did the governor pacify himself, was explaining to himself. Well, everyone had done mistake, and Evans, the clever person Evans, also had to be back inside with that question paper. He was very sure that he would be able to catch hold of Evans and bring back to prison once more. That is, come back in the prison once more. The phone on his desk erupted in a strident burst, and the Superintendent Carter informed him that McLeary had spotted Evans driving off along Elsfield Way. So the phone on the desk erupted means it burst, and the Superintendent Carter, with whom Evans had gone. Now I hope you remember the Evans who was in the cell. He was the original Evans, but he was impersonating McLeary. And McLeary, the original McLeary who had come to invigilate, the person who had come to invigilate in the guise of a parson, had already escaped. And Evans, who was impersonating McLeary in the cell, he too escaped with Superintendent Carter. So he was actually giving all wrong proofs. Now this Evans is telling the Superintendent Carter called governor and told that McLeary had spotted Evans driving along Elsfield Way. Now who is this McLeary? This McLeary is the dressed up person who is Evans himself. Evans was in the guise of McLeary, whom Superintendent Carter had taken to the hospital because the blood was oozing from his head. He had been injured. They had got the number of the car all right and given chase immediately, but had lost him at Headington roundabout. He must have doubled back, that is, with a double speed into the city. So what happened? What did McLeary, who was finding Evans, or that he must have gone, he was spotted near Elsfield Way, and from there they could see that the number of the car, they got the number of the car, and all right had given chase, that is, they followed Evans, but had lost at the Headington. That lost means they could not locate them at after Headington roundabout, because he must have doubled back, that is, he took up a double speed into the city. Now here you see, I hope you all are following, that McLeary, who was in the cell, was Evans, who had dressed like McLeary, and in this way he was fooling all the prison officers, the governor and the two officers, and he had actually escaped, and he is giving all these excuses that he had seen McLeary escape from that place at a double speed near Headington Road. No, said the governor quietly, no, he's on his way to Newbury. So governor is thinking himself to be very intelligent. He says that no, Evans had escaped to Newbury. And whom are they thinking Evans? The first person, that is the McLeary, who had gone with Stephens, I hope you remember, out of the premises of Oxford prison. The person who was in the cell was original Evans, but he was dressed in McLeary as McLeary, and he was telling that the person McLeary who had gone out, he had injured Evans and gone. So governor is also very cleverly telling that he must have gone on the way to Newbury. He explained his reason for believing so and left it at that. It was a police job now, not his. He was just another good for a gullible governor, that was all. So he understood that after that, when Evans, McLeary both had gone out of the jail, it was the work of the police, and governor thought, gave a giggle. Good for a giggle means he was uselessly thinking himself to be very intelligent, but he was a very gullible governor. Gullible means simple kind of a person. He was a very gullible means simple, could not understand the complex plan of Evans. By the way, Carter, I hope you managed to get McLeary to the hospital, right? All right. So he tells Carter, Superintendent Carter, the governor asks that did he get McLeary to the hospital all right? Now, students, I hope you are understanding. This McLeary is actually Evans only. He was impersonating like McLeary, that he had been injured by Evans and he was sitting there. So they were thinking that McLeary has gone to the hospital all right. Yes, he is in the Radcliffe now. So where was he? The Carter says that he was at the Radcliffe hospital, really groggy. Groggy means McLeary was really weak. He was when we got to the examination offices, and they rang for the ambulance from there. So the Carter reports that McLeary was really weak, now really groggy. Now who is this really groggy? Evans, who was acting like McLeary, who had blood on his forehead, and he was taken to the Radcliffe hospital as it is informed, and they rang for the ambulance from there. So at the Radcliffe hospital, they asked for the ambulance from there. Ambulance, I hope you know, where the patients are taken to the doctor or the hospital. The governor rang the Radcliffe a few minutes later and asked for the accident department. Now the governor has been fooled totally. Now governor again rang to the Radcliffe hospital a few minutes later about the accident department. That did the McLeary go there? McLeary, you say? So from the Radcliffe hospital, he got the answer that, are you telling about McLeary? So the governor says, yes, he is a parson. So he says that, yes, he is a parson. So who was McLeary? So governor confirms that he is the parson here. Now see here, this is a parson, that is a person of churchman or priest. So governor confirms that he is a churchman. I don't think there's anyone. So from the Radcliffe hospital, this information the governor got, that that the answer was given that there was no one called McLeary there. Yes, there is. So this is the governor confirming. Yes, there is. You'll find one of your ambulances picked him up from Elsfield Way about. So I hope you remember that at Elsfield Way, the McLeary had asked for an ambulance from the Radcliffe hospital. Oh, that, yes. So from Elsfield Way. Oh, that, yes, we sent an ambulance, all right, but when we got there, the fellow had gone. So in this way, they fooled that when they sent the ambulance from the Radcliffe hospital to Elsfield Way, the fellow had gone. So I hope you are getting the correct idea that this person who had been, whose forehead was oozing with blood and he was injured, was actually Evans himself, who was acting like McLeary. So in this way, both the McLeary and Evans both escaped from the Elsfield Way. Next. No one seemed to know where he was, just vanished. Not a sign. But the governor was no longer listening. So the governor, very good very well understood the picture of the story of the escape, that they have escaped from the Elsfield way. So the governor was no longer listening, and the truth seemed to hit him with an almost physical impact somewhere in the back of his neck. That is, it happened that he got a great blow in the back of his neck, that he has been fooled, that both McLeary and Evans escaped. A quarter of an hour later, they found the Reverend Senior S. McLeary. Now, a quarter of an hour later means quarter of an hour is how much? Quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. Okay. They found the Reverend S. McLeary securely bound and gagged. So, after 15 minutes later, what did they find? They found the original. He is the original McLeary coming from St. Mary's Mag's Church. In the beginning of the chapter only it was mentioned. So what had Evans' friends had done to him, that the original Reverend McLeary was securely bound. Bound means tied, band diya gaya, and gagged. Gagged means to stuff the mouth with some cloth, some cotton, so that his voice cannot come out. And what he was kidnapped. He was kept there in his study in Broad Street. And the McLeary who had come in the prison, he was an accomplice of Evans. Accomplice means a person who helps in some criminal work. So he too was a known person of Evans. Both of them planned, and this was the planning to escape from the prison. He had been there, he said, since 8:15 a.m. when two men had called Anne. So the original Reverend S. McLeary, he had been there at 8:15 a.m. Alright, and two men had come there and had gagged him and tied him and kept him in his flat. Enquiries in Newbury throughout the afternoon produced nothing. So there was a lot of chaos, confusion. All the prison officers made all kinds of enquiries in Newbury throughout the afternoon, but there was no result. Nothing at all. And by tea time, everyone in the prison knew what had happened. It had not been Evans impersonating. Now, students, please follow from here. It had not been Evans personating McLeary, but who had walked out. So it was not Evans who had impersonating means dressed up as McLeary, who had walked out of the prison just when the exam ended with Stephens to the gate. Who he had been? It had been Evans impersonating McLeary who had stayed in. So who had stayed in means where? In the cell. Who was there? It was originally Evans who had been impersonating. It was not Evans impersonating McLeary, but it was Evans impersonating McLeary inside the jail. So this is the planning they did. The fish and chips were delicious, and after a gentle stroll round the centre of Chipping Norton, Evans decided to return to the hotel and have an early night. Now, the fish and chips is a very, very delicious kind of snacks in England. So, after escaping from that place, the Evans, what did he eat? He ate, this is a fish and chips. This is chips and this is fish. Fish and chips was very delicious, and he decided to return. So Chipping Norton, where was he? He was at the place in the street Chipping Norton, and Evans decided to return to the hotel and have an early night. A smart new hat concealed the wreckage. So he very well understands that a smart new hat. What kind of a hat? It was all the conceal. Conceal means hid. Chupana, you say, no? Hid the wreckage means the damage of his closely cropped hair. Means he wore that bobble hat, no? and it covered his entire cropped hair, means the cut hair, and he kept it as he walked up to the reception desk of the Golden Lion. So where was he? He was in the hotel known as Golden Lion. It would take a good while for his hair to regain its former glories. So his hair was Evans. His hair was cut, and he thought that it will take a good time to regain its former glories, means regain its normal hair. But what the hell did that matter? So Evans thought that what actually that matter? He has escaped from the Oxford prison. It's a very interesting story. If you follow it very carefully, it is very interesting. He was out again, wasn't he? A bit of bad luck that when Jackson had pinched his scissors, so he remembers he was out again, means he was out of the prison. Where? From the prison. But there was a pinch. He had a pinched his scissors. He had a little bad luck when Jackson, that is the senior prison officer, had pinched, means taken his scissors. I hope you remember, he had taken his scissors, he had taken the nail file, nail scissors, for it had meant a long and tricky operation with his only razor blade. So he had the only razor blade in the previous night, what he had cut his hair so that he could dress like McLeary. He could keep his hair inside the bobble hat. But he had his good luck too. Just think, if Jackson had made him take his bobble hat off. So I hope you remember he had said that the bobble hat was a good charm for him during the examination. So he says that he had a good luck because Jackson could not take his bobble hat off, or he would have seen that Evans had actually cropped his hair, actually cut his hair, so that he can put his hair inside the cap and act as McLeary. Phew, that really had been a close call. That is a small margin. It was a very small margin to escape. That how he could escape of keeping the razor blade, and with that only he could cut his hair. Still, old Jackson wasn't such a bad fellow. So he understood that old Jackson wasn't such a bad fellow because he allowed him to keep the bobble hat. One of the worst things, funny really, had been the beard. So he understands that he had put the beard also on his face. So because McLeary was having a beard, so Evans, in order to act like McLeary in the cell, he had pasted the beard and looked like McLeary. He had always been allergic to sticking plaster. So Evans, who is this he? This he is Evans, who had been always allergic. It did not suit him to sticking plaster, and even now his chin was irritatingly sore and red. So he was an allergy with the gum with which the beard was pasted, and what was happening? His chin was irritating. So the chin was actually irritating and it was sore. That is painful, and it had become red. The receptionist wasn't the same girl who had booked him in, but the change was definitely for the better. So now the receptionist also changed, and he saw that the receptionist in the Golden Lion Hotel was not the same girl who had booked him, and he understood that the change was definitely for the better because the receptionist was also of his group, and she would also help him to escape. As he collected his key, he gave her his best smile, told her he would not be bothering with the breakfast, ordered the Daily Express. So he ordered what? He ordered the Daily Express newspaper and asked for an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. Tomorrow was going to be another busy day. So all these are very ironical. Evans is telling the next day will be another busy day, will be because that day he'll be finally out of the reach of the Oxford prison. He whistled softly to himself as he walked up the broad stairs. He had sort of liked the idea of being dressed as a minister as a minister dog collar. So he was thinking and amusing himself that he was dressed like a minister with a minister dog collar. Now what is it? See here, sorry, here there should be a gap. Minister means priest. What kind of a collar they have in their dress? That is a dog collar. Now this is called a dog collar. Okay, this is the dog collar. And everything he was thinking that he had dressed like a uh, with a coat of a minister, that is of a priest's dog collar. So here, so priest. Okay, next you see. Yes, it had been a jolly good idea for McLeary to wear two black fronts, two collars. Now he is revealing all the plan. That McLeary, who had come to invigilate, actually he was wearing two black fronts, that is two coats, two collars, and but the top collar, phew, it had kept on slipping off the back stud. So he remembers that the top coat, the top collar was just slipping off the back stud, that is back collar. And there had been that one panicky moment. Panicky means a fearful moment when McLeary had only just got his hand up to his neck in time to stop the collars springing apart before Stephens. So I hope you remember that when Stephens was looking through the peephole, what did he see? That McLeary was sitting a little in a turned way, that is his sideways he could see, and he was holding the back of his collar as if the coat was slipping down, because McLeary was wearing two coats. So when he goes out of the cell escorted by Stephens, he had opened one coat and given to Evans in the cell, and he went out with wearing one coat only, and therefore he had become a little slimmer, as Stephens had noticed. They had got that little problem worked out all right, though. A pen struck in the mouth whenever the evil eye, whose evil eye? That is through the peephole. He was seeing, that Stephen was seeing. So this evil eye is referred to Stephen, had appeared at the peephole. Easy. But all that fiddling about under the blanket with the black front. So what was Evans doing? He was fiddling, that is, he was changing his dress from in under the blanket. He had asked for a blanket because it was very chilly, with a black front and the stud at the back of the collar. That had been far more difficult than they had bargained for, that is, they had asked for. So Evans confesses that it was very difficult for him to dress inside the blanket because he had to change into the dress of McLeary. Everything else had been had gone beautifully smoothly, though in the car he had found everything they had promised him. So Evans remembers that everything had gone smoothly, and in the car everything was prepared for him. That is, there was soap to wash his face. So there was the soap, there was water, there was clothes, and the map also, that is the way to the road through which he would be escaping. All the things were there in the van when the Superintendent Carter came to take Evans, who was impersonating like McLeary, to the hospital. Actually, they were all accomplices, and they in the van he had all these soap, water, clothes, map, etc. Yes, the map, of course, the ordnance survey map of Oxfordshire. He had got some good friends, some very clever friends. So he had got the map, and he could find the road through which he will be escaping. Christ! He unlocked his bedroom door and closed it quietly behind him, and then stood frozen to the spot. So he was thinking all this. Then suddenly he remembers Christ, he remembers God, that he became frozen to the spot, like a man who has just got a glimpse of the Gorgon. So what happened to Evans? This he is Evans. He unlocked his bedroom door in the Golden Hotel, and he was just become a stone when if a person catches a glimpse, a sight of Gorgon. Now Gorgon is taken from the Greek story. Gorgon was a monster, and they had three. The Gorgon sisters are famous. That is, there were three sisters, and they had snake. The hair was like snake, and whomever they saw, the person became a used to freeze. They became like just like stone. So the Gorgon, he what did he see? He became just like a he became frozen on the spot, because he saw the governor sitting in front of him. Sitting on the narrow bed was the very last man in the world that Evans had expected or wanted to see. So he had become just like a frozen at his on his spot. It's not worth trying anything, said the governor quietly. So who was sitting there? The governor was sitting there, and governor said that uselessly you are trying. As Evans' eyes darted desperately around the room, that is, Evans saw every side of the room. I have got men all around the place. Well, there were only two. So governor said that I have got men, all the prison authorities were all around the place. But governor knew that there were only two really. But Evans need not know that. So there were two only. The governor knew, but Evans should not know that. He let the words sink in. Women too. Then governor said that he had also kept women. Didn't you think the blonde girl in the reception was rather sweet? So the governor reminds him that the woman, that is the blonde girl, blonde means a person who has a very fair skin, the hair is also golden. So the blonde girl in the reception, she was rather sweet. Evans was visibly shaken, that is, he became so afraid. He showed that he was visibly shaken. He sat down slowly in the only chair the small room could offer. So Evans sat in the on the chair which the small room could offer, and held his head between his heads. So Evans was showing that he was really defeated. For several minutes there was utter silence. So he put his head between his two hands, and there was utter silence in the room. That is, complete silence in the room. Finally he spoke. It was that bloody correction slip. Evans says that finally he spoke, that it was that correction slip, I suppose. Well, the governor failed to mask the deep satisfaction in his voice. There are a few people who know a little German. So the governor is showing a deep satisfaction that he has caught Evans, and he boasts that there are few people who know the German language. Slowly, very slowly, Evans relaxed. He was beaten, that is, he thought that he was caught, and he knew it. He sat up at last and managed to smile ruefully. So Evans at last sat, and he managed to smile ruefully. Ruefully means sadly. You know, it wasn't really a mistake, you see. We had not been able to fix up any hotel, but we could have worked that some other way. No, the really important thing was for the phone to ring just before the exam finished, to get everyone out of the way. I hope students, you remember, just when the exam was about to finish, the phone had rung, and it actually was a plan of Evans and his accomplices that everyone should be out of the way for a couple of minutes, so that they can know. So we had to know exactly when the exam started, didn't we? So that they had to calculate the time. The phone came and they had to calculate the time, that exactly at what time the exam was starting. So the phone call which had come, that had come from the friends of Evans to know that exactly how much time it would take for them to escape from the prison. And like a fool, I presented you with that little piece of information on a plate. So the governor says that like a fool he gave all the correction slip and as a piece of information. Well, somebody did. So you see, sir, that correction slip killed two little birds. So even says that correction slip actually killed two little birds, means it helped in taking out two ways, two informations with a single stone. Didn't it? The name, now what? The correction slip actually gave the name of the, this is hotel, okay? H is silent here. The hotel for me, and another, what was it? Another information was the exact time when the exam started for air. That is, the correction slip was killed two little birds, means two information it could convey. That is, when the hotel, what the name of the hotel where Evans would be lodging, and the exact time when the exam started. The governor nodded. It's a pretty common word. Good job. It is pretty common, sir, or I'd never have known where to come to. So Evans tells the story of all his plan, that the name of the hotel was given, so Evans was sure that where he had to lodge. Nice name though, Zum Golden in Lion. How did you know which golden lion it was? There's hundreds of them. So the governor says that it is a nice name, the Zum Golden in Lion. That is, everything was written in German. So at this, Evans asks, who is asking? Evans is asking that how did the governor know that which golden lion it was? There's hundreds of them. That is, with the same name, there are golden lion, there are hundreds of hotels. All right. So at this, Evans asks, same as you, Evans, index number 313, center number 271. So who says? The governor says that, who is telling? The governor tells that it is the same as as Evans had done. He known, that is, the index number McLeary had told that 313, center number 271. Remember 6 figures, and if you take an ordnance survey map of Oxford for Oxfordshire, you find that 6-figure references, that is 313 by 271, lands you bang in the middle of the place, Chipping Norton. So the exact address was given by announcing the index number and the center number, which all of you must be having when you appear for any exam. So it was appearing as if a very normal examination procedure, but all the informations were given through this. Yeah, you are right. Who? We had opened, you'd run off to Newbury. We did. Well, that's something, I suppose. So this is suppose. That question paper, Evans, could you really understand all that German? I could hardly. So the governor is telling that the question paper, did he actually understand the German language? He was not able to understand. And the governor also says that I could hardly, means hardly the governor also could not understand. Nah, course I could not. That is, course means of course. So this is who is telling? This is Evans is telling. Alright, this is Evans telling that no, he did not understand the German. I knew roughly what it was all about, but we just opened it, would throw a few spanners in the works. That is, few spanners means few tools, few kind of help in the work, sort of muddle to confuse everybody a bit. So actually it was a kind of a muddle to confuse the entire jail authorities in the escape of the from the prison. Now I hope you remember Evans's name in the beginning only means Evans the Brave. He had already escaped the jail 3 times before, and this escape was his 4th time. The governor stood up. Tell me one thing before we go. So the governor stood up, and then he was so inquisitive. Tell me one thing before we go. How on earth did you get all the blood to pour over your head? So the governor asked that, how did you get the blood in the cell to pour over the head? Evans suddenly looked a little happier. He was so successful in his plan that he was very happy. Clever, sir, very clever that was. How to get a couple of pints of blood into a cell. So Evans says that it was very clever, and it was how to get a couple means two measurement. Pints is the measurement of blood into a cell. When there's none there to start off with, and when the invigilator, shall we say, gets searched before he comes in. So there was no one to start off with. So that is to how to bring the blood. And the invigilator, that is McLeary, was searched. I hope your students, you remember the tube which he had brought, and he had said that he had hemorrhoids, and therefore he needed a tube to sit on that. Alright, so this was in that rubber tube, there was blood kept. Yes, sir, you can well ask about that. I don't know if I ought to tell you. After all, I might want to use that particular. Anything to do with the little rubber ring for piles, perhaps? So the governor says that anything was it to remember that rubber ring for piles. That was the thing. Evans grinned feebly. Grinned means Evans grinned, that is, he smiled very weakly. Clever though, wasn't it? Then he says that yes, wasn't it a very intelligent way of bringing blood into the cell? Must have been a tricky job sticking a couple of pins. That is, nah, you have got it wrong. No problem about that. No, nah, it's the clotting, you see. So the problem to bring the blood inside the cell was not difficult. The problem was main, if blood is kept for a little time also, it starts clotting. So the problem was in the clotting. That's a big trouble. So what they did, you see. We got the blood easy enough. And whose blood they got? They got the pig's blood. It was from the slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse means where in Hindi you call kasai, no? Where the pig and other animals are cut for mutton, for meat, to eat the meat. So they got the pig's blood in the slaughterhouse. In which place? In Kidlington, another place. But to stop it clotting, you have got to mix your actual blood. So Evans took a breath. With 1/10 of its own volume of 3.8% trisodium citrate. So what did they do? In that pig's blood, they had mixed 3.8% of trisodium citrate to keep the blood fluid, not to clot. Didn't know that, did you, sir? So Evans is very happy that in his clever plan he is telling to the governor that. Did the governor know that? It's a very easy way. It was a really easy way to do it. The governor shook his head in a token of reluctant admiration, that he was really awed. He was in surprise that he actually was admiring at this clever plan. We learn something new every day, they tell me. Come on, my lad. So the governor also accepts the fact that it was really new for him. Evans made no show of resistance, and side by side the two men walked slowly down the stairs. Tell me, Evans, how did you manage to plan all this business? So Evans told that how did he manage to plan the entire business? You have had no visitors. So the governor is reminding him Evans did not have any visitors also. I have seen to that. You have had no letters. So at this, Evans tells that he has a lot of friends. I have got lots of friends though. What's that supposed to mean? Me German teacher for a start. So the German teacher who had started teaching him German privately in the prison from the previous years, the last September, was his accomplice, was his friend. You mean, but he was from the technical college. So the governor says that, how come you know them? He was from the technical college. So Evans says, was he? He is asking that, this is, was he? This is, Evans is asking that, was he from the technical college? Did you find it? Now all the prison officers, they were not very sharp. They did not find out the whereabouts of all the calls of the people who were all coming and going in the plan of escape of Evans. Evans was almost enjoying it all now. Ever checked up on him, sir? So Evans says that, did he ever check up? God Almighty, there's far more going on than I. So the governor is also understands that far more things had happened than he had expected. Always will be, sir. This is the governor. Always will be, sir. Everything ready, asked the governor as they stood by the reception desk. The van's out the front, sir, said the pretty blonde receptionist. Now this pretty blonde receptionist is also his accomplice. She says that the van's is ready in front, sir. Evans winked at her and she winked back. So the girl receptionist winked at that. She was also in the plan. It almost made his day. That is, the van which was waiting and the driver in the van, they were all friends of Evans. So Evans winked at her and she also gave her consent by her wink. A silent prison. Now the prison officer was silent, means he was not speaking anything. Prison officers handcuffed the recaptured Evans. So the silent prison officer, this is the handcuffed the recaptured Evans, and together the two men clambered, means climbed, awkwardly, means uneasy way, into the back seat of the prison van. So the prison officer sat in the back seat of the prison van. See you soon, Evans. It was almost as if the governor, now see you soon is, the governor is expecting that Evans is going to the Oxford prison and the prison officer is also his own. So in the last meeting also, Evans fooled the governor and just from under his nose he escapes. So the governor says that soon we will meet, and he was saying, giving farewell to an old friend after a cocktail party, as if Evans was his great friend. But Evans was actually fooling the governor. He ultimately escapes. Cheerio, sir. I was just wondering. I know your German's pretty good, sir. So Evans gives these appreciation word and he says to the governor that his German is pretty good. But do you know any more of these modern languages? So is how he has fooled him. He says that, do you know any other modern language? Not very well. Why? Evans settled himself comfortably on the back seat and grinned happily. Nothing really. I just happened to notice that you have got some O-level Italian classes. So he says that, Evans tells that nothing so important, but he thinks that another Italian class would be up next September. That's all. So Evans tells, governor tells, perhaps you won't be with us next September, Evans. So governor says that perhaps he'll be in the jail and he won't be in the same jail, Evans. James Rodriguez, Evans appeared to ponder the governor's words deeply. Why deeply? That in the reality also he will be escaping. He would not be with the governor in the next class of the Italian classes. Why? Because that van, the prison van, the silent prison officer, the driver of the van were all his accomplices, and the van takes him away and thus he escapes again. No, perhaps I won't, he said, as the prison van turned right from Chipping Norton. So where is the Golden Hotel? That is in the Chipping Norton. onto the Golden Lion Hotel, onto the Oxford Road, the hitherto means earlier. He was very silent. So hitherto means earlier that person was very silent. Silent of prison office locked the handcuffs and leaned forward towards the driver. So to show the governor, he locked the handcuffs and he leaned towards the driver. For Christ's sake, get a move on. I won't take them long to find out. Where do you suggest we make for? Asked the driver in a broad Scotch accent. So the driver asked that, where do you suggest we make for? Asked the driver. Now this driver is now in a broad Scots accent. I hope you remember the MacLeary who was the invigilator. He was now the driver to make the help us escape of Evans. What about Newbury? So Evans suggested that he would proceed towards Newbury. So it is the story is the story of red herring. That is the whole story. He just plans out the way in such a way that he even fools the prison officers, and the prison officers who thought themselves to be very sharp, very clever, were totally fooled by the prisoner Evans. So I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you like my explanation, please like, share and subscribe. I'll come up with another chapter of class 12 soon.